I guess that's something that every single male in America born after 1980 has done is taken three number two pencils and put them in between their fingers and been Wolverine.
Hello and welcome to another Dead Pixel. We're a podcast about video games, anime, entertainment, life, a little bit of everything in between. I'm your host, as always, Joe, and with me, the gentleman who's carrying on Grandma's tradition of bringing everyone's hated Christmas dish, Mr. Fruitcake himself, Nick. How you doing, Nick?
I'm doing good. Yeah, Grandma, she loves the fruitcake, and I'm not gonna be the one to break Grandma's heart. So I'm gonna be the one to enforce the tradition, whether or not anybody calls the police. Um, you know, you don't have to like it, but you do have to eat it. At least one bite. So yeah, that's what I'm here for, and I'm not sorry. But otherwise, I'm doing pretty good. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, we were just talking about the weather beforehand, and we just finally got some snow that's really sticking here, and it's just like, yeah, everyone always loses their dang minds when it comes to it because they forgot how to drive in the snow. I mean, they pick up
Uh,
real quick by like day two, three, but still, it's just like when it really starts to stick for the first time or so, they're like, yeah. Anti-lock brakes, they stop me automatically, right? Four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive means I can do anything I want, right? Um, yeah, everything except for pull yourself out of a ditch. Uh, so
mm,
yeah, that's uh, other than that, we're doing all right here. Can't complain. And if I did, no one cares anyways. Okay.
you're definitely right about the last part. Yeah, I like how our conversations in the pre-show basically start with like deep conversation about film and video games, and then move into the news, and then finally end up with the weather. Whereas most people are kind of the other way.
Yeah, you start off light and go end heavy. We're like, no, no, let's just dive in the deep end. We say hi to each other, haven't spoken in a week. So what about them politics there, hey?
Yeah.
And then afterwards,
What do you think about religion? Yeah.
all right. So that's what you should do with your family this time around. If you want to break up the holiday festivities early, or if you just want to see the house burn, just quickly bring up, politics, religion, any of that stuff. Just throw it out there and just let chaos ensue. Find a little corner, grab yourself a cup of your favorite drink, and just kind of let it all go. And just see how fun it is. And then listen to that uncle who always says, "I'm not racist, but,"
But
and then yeah, and be like, "Yeah,
gosh.
true colors are shining now, Uncle Gary." Uh,
I'm not racist, but I'm about to say something racist.
all right. So as you can tell, this is us right before the holiday season. See, we will be recording a little later next week. We're gonna
Oh
actually
yeah.
be missing a couple days just because of the holiday festivities. So, yeah. Uh, I mean, other than that, we don't got a lot of news this week for you. Game of the year stuff was last week. Things are kind of on the quiet end, and
Yeah.
let's take it away.
Yeah. Yeah, all the big stuff has kind of happened, all the big games have come out. And we're pretty much heading into the quietest part of the year. I mean, between now and February is going to probably be pretty quiet. But you never know. Maybe there will be a giant explosion within the gaming industry, and we'll have a lot to talk about in January. But for now, just one. I mean, I saw a couple stories I thought were sort of interesting, but nothing that I really wanted to dive deep on, except for kind of a follow up story um, about Sony and Kadokawa. So a while ago, we talked about how had made a bid to buy Kadokawa, which concerning video games, they uh, own uh, they own FromSoft, who obviously makes Elden Ring and Dark Souls and all that stuff. So that seemed to be like a backdoor way that Sony may have been trying to get a hold of that IP and stuff like that. So they made a bid, and we just hadn't really heard anything else about it. Well, the other shoes kind of dropped on that now, and it seems like like um, the bid to buy Kadokawa did not work out. What did happen is that Sony became the biggest shareholder of Kadokawa stock. So they are now a 10% shareholder, which is not enough. I mean, I guess it's up in some world it could be large enough for them to be the primary owner, but for at least this for at least right now, 10% is not enough for them to have a controlling interest in Kadokawa. Certainly, it's a big interest, and their opinions will be taken very seriously with a 10% interest in the company. But yeah, so it seems like Kadokawa was probably like, well, your offer's good, but not really good enough to buy us out. Why don't you like? Could we interested you in just being a pretty big owner of the company and having more say in what's going on, which probably for everybody is, I don't know, is I think it's probably better than Sony buying them outright. That just kind of seems like a little bit too much to me. Sony makes me nervous. They've been good little boys. They've been a good little boy recently, but I'm just waiting for Sony, circa PlayStation 3 era, to kind of rear its ugly head, and for them to start taking advantage of the fans and stuff like that. So anyway, I think that maybe having like a 10% interest makes it so like, hey, we want this to happen and that to happen, but which will push stuff, toward their own interests, I guess. But it's enough for Kadokawa to go like, yeah, we don't really want to do it that way. We're still going to put it on your platform, but we don't really have to do exactly what you say, which hopefully will keep things fresh. So that's kind of what I got out of it. Joe, do you have an opinion on this, or do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's better that Sony doesn't own Kadokawa for more for the anime industry than for the gaming industry.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a good point.
I mean, because I made the joke before of like, what happens if they buy FromSoft? Well, like then they have that they have FromSoft's games, they have Neo, and then they're gonna leave Xbox with like Life of P, which is multi-platform anyways. So, uh, but honestly, when it comes to anime, it's more important because Sony is kind of uh, the monopoly owner on that for at least the streaming industry and a lot of the stuff over here in the U.S. Sony owns Aniplex, if I remember correctly. They uh, Funimation, and they just recently bought Crunchyroll. Well, recent as in like uh, a few years ago.
Yeah, because now it's
So yeah,
Crunchyroll and Funimation are the same thing. Yeah,
yeah. But I mean, like, so I think it was pandemic, like around the pandemic era. So it
yeah,
was one of those things that so what, maybe 4 years ago, and for them to own Kadokawa, who produces a lot of anime, like both publishing wise and actual anime for manga and anime. It's a big deal. So
yeah,
it's good that one company doesn't own them all. You need some competitors out there. Um, yeah, no, that's it. I mean,
yeah,
it's yeah, 10% is a big chunk, but it's not enough for a hostile takeover or anything like that, so you don't have to worry. Hopefully that just means that they're invested, so therefore they might be willing to put more money into the next From game. They might do something like
oh yeah,
At most, they might be like, "Hey, we'll give you a little more money, and why don't you give us the DLC first?" That type of exclusivity deal that isn't as common as it used to be, but maybe they're gonna try to hit that angle maybe. But there's no way they're just gonna be like, "Just give it just to us." Not unless if they fully pay for it upfront, which I don't really see happening too much.
Yeah, I mean, exclusivity deal for the next From game sounds um likely. It sounds very, maybe not likely, but it sounds very possible if they have a as big an interest as they do in Kadokawa. But yeah, the anime stuff is probably um it's not as sharp a point, but it's probably a bigger deal because Kadokawa does make so much anime, so much good anime. Um, and for Sony to own them and own Crunchyroll, it does sort of start to feel like the market maybe is a little bit cornered. And then, if things at Sony get a little bit, I mean, so far Sony is not, they're willing to make all different kinds of stuff for ages, 5 to like 25. They're willing to make stuff that is violent or cute or like whatever and everything in between. So it could be in worse hands, but still separate hands are probably better for now. It would be interesting to see that world, um, how different it would be in the short term. Probably not very different, but let's say they did buy Kadokawa, in 10 years. I would just wonder what that would really look like. I mean, maybe it would be like way freaking better or something like that. I'd rather take the chance that it just to not have that.
Well,
Just
just a reminder of Kadokawa, some of their stuff for the anime industry. I mean, you got like Oshinoko, which massive. You have Kimi no Nawa, which I'm forgetting what the English name of that
your
movie
name.
was. Your Name, there you go. And Konosuba, Overlord, stuff like that. So they're kind of everywhere. Even most recently, we mentioned about the uh, Senpai, the Bunny Girl Senpai anime.
Yeah.
That's on their card. So Kadokawa does it all.
Do you know if Sony has? I'm trying to think because it doesn't stick out to me what, if any, anime that Sony has put their own name on directly. I mean, they make movies that have been pretty good in the past. I think Sony's heyday, as far as like an actual like film studio, as being like, oh dang, that was like really good. I felt like that was like the 2000, like, well, the 90s through the 2000s. They had some pretty interesting. They were kind of like, what was it, like A2 Pictures or something, or
A1,
A1?
A1 is
Yeah.
them. Yes. So I mean, A1 is the big one for them. So is Clover.
Oh, okay.
Um,
So maybe that. Yeah. Okay. So I guess they just kind of siphoned all that stuff off, so it's not big Sony on the front. So maybe they are still doing good stuff. I'm just wondering, like, their anime, like what they're already doing. Um, what like I just try to estimate how likely it would be that they would just completely run Kadokawa into the ground. I don't think it would be immediate. It wouldn't be like EA levels, but it would. I just wonder if they would, like, how bad it would be.
I mean, since they have a lot of other companies under their belt, or they own percentages of them. I mean, I think it's one of those things that how long does it take before management starts letting people go or seeing redundancies,
Yeah.
and then once you start changing the hierarchy, it's like, well, um, that's when from the top down things start shaking. I don't
Yeah.
know. I just like the idea of having uh, more companies, more studios to do more with their work, and
Yeah.
hopefully it's better overall for the industry. I mean,
Well,
usually.
yeah. I mean, because like after 5 years, and especially like 10 years, like Jeff Gershman used to say about people who were like, oh, I wish, I wish, let's just say, like, I wish BioWare would make another KOTOR game, 15 years after the last one. And, Jeff Gershman would say to that, like, that studio is not the same studio. Like, all the people that made that game, that's like 10 years ago or 15 years ago. They're all gone. They've all moved up and become bosses at different studios and moved on. And the generations have changed like twice over. It's like it's like a completely different thing. Like, you can ask for a KOTOR 2 or whatever, or, X Game 2, but you're not going to get what you want because the same people just are not there to make it. So I think that's eventually that would be what would happen with Sony and Kadokawa, is they would just kind of mutate it to sort of be what they want it to be, and then it all just kind of look sort of similar, sort of flashy.
Yeah, well, I mean, A1 and Cloverworks are all, I believe, under the Aniplex umbrella.
Okay.
So I mean, and Aniplex is owned by so Sony has them. So that's kind of whether or not they leave, if they were to own Kadokawa, like hypothetically, would they have uh would they leave it a separate arm, or would they then try to throw it under, like, merge both Aniplex and Kadokawa into one? That's a pay grade above my own. I can see uh, over time them being like, well, let's just kind of streamline this, and the moment they start firing people and changing creativity, just like uh, a lot of people are thinking, well, with From Software, be like they like to have the freedom to make what they want to make,
Yeah.
and not be not have the overlords like crushing them and trying to, like, no, we need to make a deadline, we need you to pump this out, or we really want this type of current gimmicky thing, whether it
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
microtransactions,
Can you put some
DLC. Like, we
microtransactions in
need you
here?
to make so much extra, because they didn't really do, it's like, I mean, they're now coming out with the Elden Ring multiplayer stuff, which is like wild. We didn't talk about that the other day, but
Is that
that's
the
like,
night
that
and
looks pretty cool.
what's it called? Night Shade, Night Veil, Night something, Night Shadow.
I honestly, I actually didn't catch the name of it. I just ended up seeing the trailer for it. I'm like, dude, you're flying everywhere. You're going with your team. I'm like, that seems like it'd be fun. And it would be
Squad.
the most enjoyment I'd probably get out of it. But I need people to carry me, because I'm not good at that game.
I mean,
So
yeah. Let me solo her. It's
yeah,
probably the
so
only
that means I'm
guidance.
not playing with you, is what I'm saying. You couldn't carry me.
I know.
So, uh,
I'm letting me solo her. That's that I'm coming out. I haven't told the world this, but that's who I am online.
so what I've done is, as far as the
Night Rain.
uh, okay, thank you. Yeah, so Sony owning FromSoft, there's that fear that, they would uh, really make them follow certain guidelines, and if it's not ready, then they'd be in trouble. And it's like, but the way they are now, FromSoft has the flexibility to be like, it's not ready yet. Let's delay this thing. Let's
Yeah.
delay until it is ready, and let's let it cook for a little longer and do what needs to be done. And I think that's the appropriate route you need to take.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, hey, well, just let them be. Let Kadokawa do its own thing and be its own entity. Sony should put a bid on Microsoft just for the fun of it, just to see how that goes.
Gosh, just to like mess with Phil Spencer.
Yeah,
I mean,
uh,
that would Phil Spencer would be like, okay, bring it on. You're gonna waste your money
or
because
full
I'm not.
circle. Sony put a bid on Nintendo. There you go. Sony can then
Uh,
make their handheld, and that'll technically be the new Sony Switch. There you go, the SS in your pocket. Uh,
it has like a two backwards like S's crossed over to each other like a swastika. Oh,
All right. On that note,
moving right
yeah,
along.
that's really it for the news. We really hadn't had a lot today that you found interesting.
I might
So
I might have to cut that part. Um,
That's absolutely fine. Uh, Whatevs. All right. So, what have you been playing?
I've been playing a little game called Melty Blood Type Lumina. So this is an anime fighter that I heard about a long time ago. Um, it its source material is a manga, and then there's like a I'll just call it it's kind of like I'll call it like a dojin um like game, I think. And apparently,
It's a visual novel. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, what I read about it is that people say that the manga is actually pretty good, but that the games are not really good, and then that this game, Melty Blood Type Lumina, that you shouldn't play it for like the story or anything like that. But the reason why I played it is because it came up on PlayStation Plus, and when it did, I was like, oh dang, because a while ago I'd heard that it's actually a really good fighter. So I was like, oh, I get a chance to play this for free. I'll take it, and I think it's on super discount like all the time on Steam or whatever. But it came up on PlayStation, so I decided to grab it, and I did play it a little bit here and there. Um, and yeah, I can confirm it is a from what I played of it, it is a very um, tight, well crafted fighter. Um, it's like the aesthetic is anime, obviously, but also vampires and vampire hunters. But like as I started to play through it, like all the controls just felt really good. Everything was very clear, and there it wasn't super flashy, but uh, I guess they sacrificed flash for, hey, this is exactly what you're doing, and here's your hitbox. This is like everything's just super clear, and it was really it was refreshing to kind of like see that, because I was like, I don't really have to worry about this thing or that thing or whatever. A lot of the combos were also pretty easy to pull off. Um, they had like a training thing, which is pretty common now in fighters. Most fighting games try to do a pretty good job of teaching you how to play, how to get to a good, and it's like, well, you can just go in and fight and do the arcade stuff and have some fun. But if you want to like get good at this game, like you don't have to just look it up online or figure it out on your own. We have a training thing. Most of them have that. I'm not sure how old this game was. It's pretty old though. Um, so
2021
21. Okay,
was Type Lumina.
okay, never mind. Then it's not that old. So yeah, it makes sense that they'd put the training stuff in there. But it was very much from like like it's some like the very beginning. So they weren't skipping over anything, and it had just tons and tons of stuff. And the combos that I was able to pull off were pretty. It didn't take much to feel like I was doing something or feel like I had several different tools in my belt. They're like, how like a lot of times fighting games have it so the projectile it's not exactly hard, but but doing it quickly and consistently is not easy. And this game, with a couple of with the characters that I played, all of them had either a projectile or a gap close that was very easy to repeat consistently. So like I might miss it like one out of every 8 times or whatever, but it was pretty easy to get. So so yeah, it's a pretty good little game. I kind of wish I had time to play more of it, but I at least wanted to try it out. So if you're into anime fighters, you could definitely do worse than Melty Blood type Lumina. So yeah,
Yeah.
you check it
So I
out.
mean, this is French Bread who does this, and they've always made, I mean, the before Melty Blood, the big one for them was the Uniel. That's the Undernight in Birth EX
Yeah,
late, and there's that one that they've redone like a couple times, adding more stuff throughout the years. I mean, they originally did that one back in 2013. Then they came out a couple more times. There's a new uh, Under Night in Birth game that came out this year, In Birth 2, because they finally made a sequel. Uh, and the one that I really liked from them was back in, I think it was 2015, and that was the Dengenki Bunko Fighting Climax, and that
mm,
was from based off of the comic. It's Dengenki Bunko is kind of like a Shonen Jump magazine. So they took a lot of the anime or the manga characters from that and made a fighter out of it. So you got stuff like Railgun from a certain magical index slash certain scientific railgun. You have Excel World. You had Tiger from Torodora. Uh, yeah, you had what's that? Sword Art Online in there. Characters from that. You had Strike the Blood. So they had a bunch, like irregular magical high school. So I actually liked a lot of the characters they had in that fighting game.
yeah.
So that really worked out for me. They even had like Devil's a part timer and such. So it was kind of awesome. I really did enjoy that one a lot. Uh, and I know in the like that game came out for uh what was it, the PS3 and 4 and the Vita. But I know with the the other games they have, like Unio and stuff, those are usually ported by to the ported over by Arc's system. So, you know, the guys who do fighting games like no one else, so if they're willing to at least port them over and take the effort, I mean, you're at least in good hands, and you know that it's kind of an offhand seal of approval, right?
Yeah.
They wouldn't just necessarily slap their names or try to port over anything garbage. Uh, so yeah, totally anything that French Bread does. If you like anything anime fighting related, and you don't want to do directly from Arc System for some reason, there you go.
Yeah, I mean,
So
like our Arc system is like the place to go, but like if you're looking for something a little bit different, and I mean the Arc system games they look fantastic, um, but like as much as I played, uh, what is it called, Strive, um, it, it you know, a lot of stuff in that is just hard. It's hard to pull off, at least consistently. So I mean, maybe some people it's not, and they would find Melty Blood.
Guilty Gear is a hard game though. That's the thing, is Guilty
Yeah,
Gear's never been a you
yeah. I
know
mean, but Strive is supposed to be the most approachable. I'm pretty sure. I
it
mean,
is.
yeah,
Without a doubt.
yeah.
It
Oh,
most
yeah, and that's
definitely is.
it's still still hard or whatever. But I mean, so so what I was gonna say is maybe Strive is not hard for some people, but then they would find Melty Blood either difficult or boring somehow or whatever. I don't know, but if you're looking for something a little bit different, and if you have PlayStation Plus, I mean, or whatever, then you could definitely get this game and have a palate cleanser or try something different or whatever. So yeah, that's I'd heard it was good. I figured it would be pretty good, and I was pleasantly surprised. So yeah.
And that was, I'm sorry, that was what you have, the PlayStation Plus Extra, correct?
Yeah, you have extra, so I don't think the basic would get you that, but you don't need premium. You just need extra for now, anyway.
Okay, cool. All right. All right, now to what I've been playing. Yeah, I finally got around to playing a game that's been on my radar for a hot minute now, but it's uh Trepang 2. There's no Trepang 1, it's just straight to number 2. And I've had this on my Steam wish list for a while, but I ended up picking it up at one of the local libraries for the PlayStation.
Mm,
And at first glance, it's kind of hard to tell what it is, just especially looking at the cover because it kind of looks almost like a like a some sort of uh, Counter Strike equivalent or some sort of multiplayer shooting game
it's a
because you see a
weird
squad of people on the cover.
it's a weird name for the kind of game that it is. It's like I figured it would be like a tropical game or something, but it's not.
Yeah, so this game is pretty great in the fact that it has. I don't know if you ever got to play Fear, but it reminds me of Fear in all the right ways. Uh,
Mm, okay.
it's a very it's it's the quick story of it. What little there is in the beginning is you're in a facility, a detention facility of some sort, and you're essentially strapped to a chair watching some sort of uh, brainwashing montage clip. The uh, they show like nukes go off and other things, and just yeah, but your rescuer comes and sneaks in, uh, takes out a few guys, and then just shoots the monitor and pretty much just like cuts you free or lets you go, and then it's up to you to get out.
Mm,
You have without any explanation, they just say, yeah, you have the ability to go invisible for some active stealth cloaking for just a little bit, and which is on a quick recharge. And the other thing you can do is slow down time. So it has that Max Payne vibe, and like I said, it reminds you of Fear. Plus, the gameplay itself is just very quick action. The enemies come at you, and when you shoot them, they have a nice little gore effect. Very like I said, it's just all about it. Just really rings true to Fear. The AI is really good, like not really good, but they flank you and they actually actively look for you. Uh, and they make all the right voice calls to at least if they're not actively looking for you, it sounds like they are. Um, and you can do the slow motion and cloaking simultaneously. You pick up weapons. A lot of it seems to reward up close and personal combat. There's a uh, you don't get an abundance of ammo, so a lot of times you'll have to be switching weapons on the fly. Uh, but it just feels really good. It feels just like an old arcadey shooter. I don't really need much of a story when it comes to this game. It's just very satisfying to play. Uh, it's one of those games that has uh, like a lot more higher difficulty settings. Normal difficulty is the second from the easiest, and it goes then like hard, I forget, like, extreme. I forget what the one higher than that, but then it's, like, rage mode, which is, like, the hardest, and depending on what difficulties you beat it on, will unlock cheat modes for you then to just, muck about later, which I thought it was kinda funny. They actually let you unlock different cheat modes. It's a game that I will never get the platinum on because, I'm just playing it on hard, and I'm like, I can't imagine playing it on the extreme difficulty like rage mode or something like that because you'll be, it straight up says in the description like enemies will spot you instantly, uh, and since it's such a fast paced game, you end up dying pretty quick if you're caught incorrectly. The and it says something on the subtext of uh, like this game isn't for I'm gonna be paraphrasing, but it's like this game is for like you'd have to be something really wrong with you or something like that to play this game, you know.
okay.
And it's just like, all right, that's on that difficulty setting. I'm like, yeah, okay, I can see that. But it's for those who really want to challenge, who really like the fast pace. It's all about the Twitch response. The graphics are good enough, and except some of the cutscenes is funny because they showed like a helicopter just loading screen, and I looked at that, I'm like, "Wow, that is an old-looking helicopter." The graphics just seem really bad about that, but the actual, like, in-game models and the textures and stuff seemed perfectly fine to me, during the actual action scenes. But yeah, it's really just a fun, simple shooter that your whole goal is to just go from point A to point B. You find intel along the way that is kind of interesting, but there's too much of it for me to read it all. So I just stopped. I was like, yeah, I kind of want to know more about the whole lore, but it's not. I'm like, no, no, just get me pure action. Just get me shooting. Point me in the direction I need to go and have fun. So it's not a long game. I think How Long to Beat has it from like 6 to 8 hours, depending on your difficulty.
Oh,
And
6 to 8.
Yeah, 628, not
Okay.
68. That'd be
Mm.
insane. Yeah, 628. And yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just short, little, sweet games. Fine. I think it's like $30. So it's not very, it's not a full price title, but it provides a lot of good enjoyment for if you like those kind of the older style shootings. But yeah, I recommend it in that front. I'm glad I picked it up. If you find it at a library or something like that, or if you ever get a chance to just quick check it out, totally do it. The other thing that I recently played was the PSVR 2 just has a demo for a diving game called Subside. Um, the demo is just like the little training area right now. Uh, the key takeaway is uh, this game is beautiful in the PSVR 2 headset.
Mm.
It is like it looks amazing. The water is really clear, has the really good lighting effects of the waves as it like bounces off the floor of and there's a lot of exploration to be had. Not really much of objectives, so it's it's more of a hunt, like a searching, like free roaming kind of situation. They give you a little tiny sandbox, at least in the training area, and you have that area to maneuver around. You can pick up some coins. Those coins you turn around to buy upgraded gear, and that just makes your life a little easier in the game. You can buy like a weighted belt, which then helps you descend and ascend easier with instead of having to manually swim down and up with your hands. You can just use a thumbstick to, more or less keep yourself level and just go, elevator straight up and down. You can buy flippers, which then instead of having to constantly like paddle or swim with your hands, you then just pull the R2 trigger and it'll propel you in a straight line. So it makes it, not very fast, but the whole point is later on you get upgrades for like oxygen, so you can hold your breath longer underwater, or you can later on get extra devices that makes you swim faster. So just to make to quality of life stuff, which makes you want to find the the coins, which then makes you want to buy the gear. But also there's other challenge little things to collect, and it's really just an awesome looking, chill game. I mean, it's one of those things that it's questionable whether or not some people would call it a game. But I really enjoyed my time with it. Though, be careful for those who get motion sick, because granted, I played it I was late in the evening. I was tired and a little hungry, and I was pretty fine for the most of it. But towards the end, all of a sudden, like kind of out of nowhere, I kind of got like a queasiness in my gut. So I'm like, that really doesn't happen with me much. I mean, I can get like unbalanced with certain games, but I really usually don't get that stomach queasiness. But it was a mixture between I think lack of sleep and just being hungry as well.
Mm.
So afterwards, I turned it off. Had a meal, or some, and then I was fine. It wasn't like it lasted forever. Um, and also, something similar happened with my spouse. Ended up just kind of hit him all of a sudden, and so that was weird. But I think it's just kind of a nature of being in the water. So for those who get motion sick, maybe it's not the best thing for you. Um, a lot of people are comparing this to like the kayaking VR game on PSVR, which a lot of people are it's very pretty, but also very much not a game in the fact that you're just kind of less than a walking simulator, because a lot of the walking simulators have a story for you to go with,
Yeah.
and you're just kind of experiencing the beats. Kayaking VR was just more of like check out the cool scenery, kind of move your arms a bit and just. But it's one of the things that they're very much experiences if you want to chill and relax, have a good time. Now with Subside, at least you have objectives you can kind of do for yourself. Choose whether or not you want 100% a level or something. And the demo is the right way to do it. Check out the demo, see if you like it. It's supposed to drop tomorrow by the time this releases, it'll already be out.
Hmm.
It should be for $25. So I think a fair price. And yeah, I mean,
I mean,
it doesn't hurt to give it a demo try.
yeah, I think we're still in the phase with VR where, um, like what like a walking simulator is acceptable as kind of like a proof of concept tech demo. You're doing a little bit, but you're kind of there mostly for the experience. So I'm okay with that. I think that's especially if it's like just being in it is kind of the point and is beautiful and is worthwhile. So that kind of makes sense. It's sort of not really the same, but some of the screenshots I've looked at it is they do look really fantastic and very like realistic and beautiful. So maybe like on the realistic side of Subnautica, some of this stuff. So some of the, I mean, it's not the same, obviously, but when I first saw the screenshots, I was like, oh, that kind of looks like Subnautica in some ways, but in other ways, it looks like a lot more realistic. So yeah, very, very, very cool looking little demo. Um, and do you already have it queued to download, or you're planning to grab the download?
Well, I already played the demo,
Oh, okay.
and as far as so yeah, that's I've already experienced all that, and the game actually comes out tomorrow. It doesn't have a spot to pre-order.
Okay.
For some reason, at least not that I found on the Sony store. All it has is the countdown clock for tomorrow.
Okay.
So in fact, on the Sony store, when I pulled up the page, like to try to to look at it, the price wasn't even an option. It was just like the only thing I found was the demo. There
Okay.
wasn't an option between like the demo page and then look at the full game price. So I
Mm,
think what's going to happen is when the full game drops, it'll add a second tab and one tab
yeah.
for the demo, one tab for the full game. Uh,
Do you
but yeah, I mean,
are you planning to get the full game?
yeah, it's one of those things that it's like I think I'm gonna try to mess around with the demo one more time during normal condition, I guess is the
Mm,
best way to put it, because that little bit of nausea like really like hit really odd. But honestly, I think I'll probably end up getting it because it's just such a great proof of concept, and I think it'll be really interesting. It's one of those. It was chill and fun to play, and it's just a nice unwind, relax,
yeah.
take you out of it. You don't necessarily need to be always shooting things in VR or,
Yeah.
having a huge rush. Um, so I liked it because of that. Also, I think it's a really neat thing to when you have friends and family come over, you're
I
like,
was gonna
"Hey,
say
just check this out. Take a look at this."
introduce VR to
And that
them.
wow factor, yeah.
Yeah. So
So
yeah, the only thing would be if it's more activating in the VR sickness, that could be a little bit of a concern. But if you're like, hey, this is really cool, let's just try it for 5 minutes, they'll probably survive. But yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. Is it would definitely be um, in that category of hey, let me just show you what VR can freaking do, man. That's pretty cool.
I mean, they do have the options, all the motion sick stuff like, you have smooth turning on or off. You can swim or teleport, to your locations. I chose not to warp because generally speaking, I just prefer to have that smooth, fluid, gameplay,
Hmm.
and, that's just the way I do it, and I feel it generally works well for me. So, you know but yeah, I totally recommend. It doesn't hurt to try it all. I would recommend a lot of people try it. And if anything else, even if it's not for you, you can still keep the demo on your unit and be like, "Hey," you can still have
Yeah.
people check it out and be like, "Check this out," and it doesn't cost you anything. So,
Yeah, that's a good point. You can just keep the demo for for those purposes.
all right, all right. Well, about what we've been watching. All right, I guess you know what. I'll let you go first on this one since I mentioned the last two things.
Okay. Um. So, uh, before the podcast, Joe and I talked about how what I was going to mention, and he thought that I may have talked about this before. I looked through the dockets, and I couldn't find where I had talked about this in the past. So if I have talked about it, then I'm sorry. You're gonna have to hear it again. Um, so anyway, I watched a while ago. I watched a movie called Trap, which is by M. Night Shyamalan, and um, it's you can kind of get quite a bit out of what's going on from the trailer, but I will be getting into some spoilers pretty quickly. So just to know that as you listen. I can't think of the actor's name.
Josh Hartnett.
Josh Hartnett, yeah. So haven't seen much Josh Hartnett, since the late aughts. I'm going to be real honest. But
I mean, he was an Oppenheimer.
he was an I mean, he's come back. Yeah, he's come back a lot. He was in that most recent season of Black Mirror for a good episode, and he's in Oppenheimer, and he's in this. But there's a good long time, like almost 10 years, where I feel like I didn't see him at all. But maybe that's just me. Anyway,
He was pretty popular in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah,
I mean,
the early 2000s.
Pearl Harbor and 30 Days of Night,
Dude.
Lucky Number 11.
Dude, yeah, like he had a run. He had a run. I mean, Black Hawk Down. He was in Black Hawk Down. You know, yeah. So anyway, this movie, Josh Hartnett does a really good job, I think, as for what he's asked to do. The thing about this movie is that everything in it is technically possible to happen. But the chances of it happening are any one of these things, many of these things, any one of them are pretty astronomical. And then for it to just kind of keep happening is definitely very, very astronomical. So this movie is basically about Josh Hartnett is the star, and he is a serial killer. But he is also a normal guy with a family, and the movie, at least at the beginning, is about him taking his daughter, who does not know he's a serial killer, to a concert to see a popular singer, who I'm pretty sure is M. Night Shyamalan's like actual daughter. And that's sort of the thing about this movie, is it's kind of also a vehicle for her music career. Okay. So, and her acting career. So it is a little bit like, okay. And I didn't really know all that going into it, but you can kind of pick it up as you watch. You're like, okay. So anyway, so it's so he's taking his daughter to this concert. It's supposed to be just a normal thing. He's not going to kill anybody there at the concert or whatever. At least that's not the plan. It's just going to be a grand old time. Well, he finds out that the whole concert is a trap. That's why the movie's called Trap. The whole concert is a trap to catch him, the serial killer, because the police have been tipped off somehow. And so they are surrounding the concert, and he has to. And so basically, he's the protagonist. He's the one that the story is about. And in a weird way, you're kind of, the movie kind of tricks you into rooting for him, sort of, as he like sort of, Mission Impossible tries to get out of the situation without his daughter finding out that he's a serial killer, and without getting caught and all this stuff. So all of that kind of goes on. And it's not bad. It's not bad in the moment to moment. It's sort of like I've talked about before, Alfred Hitchcock's fridge test, where you see the movie, you go home, you're like, oh, that's a pretty good movie. And then you like wake up in the middle of the night to go get something to eat out of the fridge. You open the fridge and looking at what you might eat. And then you suddenly realize that the part in this movie that you just watched a couple hours ago didn't make any sense. There's nothing quite that bad, but there's just a lot of stuff where it's like, yeah, that seems pretty astronomical. Anyway, that out of the way, The acting is pretty good. The story itself is pretty interesting. Is pretty compelling. If you can suspend disbelief, I don't think that. I think it's kind of hard to hate. But yeah, I don't know what rating I would give it because it's sort of in that weird zone. But you know, I was compelled. I was compelled to keep watching it as I was watching it. I was like, dang, I want to see what happens next. Um, and I think it's probably the best way to think about this movie is I want to see what happens next. Um, and then there's some crazy stuff that happens at the end that I won't spoil, but it gets kind of wild. And it's a good fun ride. Uh, yeah. So if you like M Night Shyamalan and you're into maybe a little bit of that's kind of weird. I don't know if I believe that would really happen that way. Then maybe it's up your alley. But yeah.
All right. I only know this film because I saw the YouTube pitch meetings, little comedy short, and that was pretty funny. Uh, yeah, that's all I had to base to go off of this. Didn't know anything else about the movie, so when you brought it up later, I'm like, oh, okay, someone actually saw the movie. Okay, interesting. So
Apparently, it did well at the box office. I didn't look it up, so I don't know. Maybe it didn't, but apparently it sold tickets. But
yeah, on Wikipedia it just says it cost only 30 million to make for the budget,
oh, that
and
is really cheap.
uh,
Wow.
so 82.7, almost 83 million box office. So it made its money back.
Probably made about
I mean,
20 or so million, maybe $25 million. Yeah.
so I mean, it came out ahead. So that's a winner, I guess. But yeah, all right, cool. Now, yeah, I know you. So I've recently been watching the season 5 of an anime that you kind of gave up on early.
Mm.
Uh, but I actually really like it still. It's Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? So season 5 has been getting English dubbed, and I'm like 6 episodes in, I believe, at this point. Uh, and it goes places. It's funny. It's just one of those things that there's such a break between seasons that you kind of forget what happened previously, and you're like, oh yeah, okay. So you're trying to have to play catch up, just because the story takes place immediately after, essentially. Um, and then they actually bring up reference in this season, like, yeah, pretty much all 5 seasons are in the span of 6 months. You're like, wait a minute, what? That's insane. So
Wow.
I mean, this season's going pretty good, I would
It's
say.
like it's
Last
like
season was really strong.
it's like the 24 version of anime, like the Kiefer Sutherland show. It's like every minute of animation is real time. Holy
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about it, it's like, well, 6 months, 5 seasons. Okay, there you go. It's just a little over a month a
This,
season, which I
this
mean, that
actually
gives it some.
this actually reminds me like this campaign of D&D that I read. Like we went through. I mean, of course there were little breaks and stuff like that, but we played for probably a year, and we brought on the year anniversary. And I was like, you know what, guys? I think it's been 3 weeks of real time, or it's been 3 weeks in the game, in the year that we've been playing this. And they were like, "What, really?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think that's about right." So, time to get away from you. I'll admit to that.
Yeah, so time flies when you're in a dungeon. Okay, Roger.
Something like that.
But yeah, so I mean, they really go places in this one. The last season was rock solid with a lot of action and like suspense that way. This one they take some things you thought you knew and completely flip it on its head. Like no, it's doing pretty solid, I think. I'd recommend this. I recommend the series. And if people were kind of on the fence, yeah, I mean, once again, I always take note of an anime that isn't like a shonen property that goes on for multiple seasons. Like if any anime gets like a season 2, especially if it gets a season 3, I generally then will try to take a look at it because it interests me that fact that if it's not a major, one of your major headline players, from like Shonen Jump or something like that, like that means there's something about it that makes it they think they can make more money off of it. And especially when they take breaks like this, or like I mentioned before, like irregular magical high school. Like I actually like that concept and that world that they built. But there's so many extra novels or light novels and manga behind it that, things like that where it's like, okay, you kind of get lost in the weeds. But it's always amazing that they're like, yeah, we're gonna, like a year or two, probably 3 years later, come out with the next season. We're like, really? Like you weren't just gonna be like right off the heels of your last success. Like these are things like Overlord or something like that, where they take breaks in between. They're like, okay, good for you. I mean, you have enough interest, enough fan base to financially warrant you making a new season.
Mhm.
And like that's really fascinating for, I find that really, in the world of anime where like we will cut you like mid-season, like, or mid-story.
Yeah.
Like you should get a season 2, a
Mid-sentence, yeah.
24 episode, but like we're like, no, we're gonna stop you right here. We didn't The DVD sales, Blu-ray sales weren't good enough. You're out. And but in these cases, I'm like, okay, the sales of the DVD and Blu-rays were probably good enough, but also the sales of the manga or the light novels are good enough to really warrant coming back to the well. And so I was like, all right, I'm kind of curious how that all works behind the scenes. Uh, but when it comes to a season like this and a series, like I generally like the series as a whole. Yes, it has its ups and downs. I mean, everyone has like, the sophomore slump kind of thing,
Mm.
but hey, it's proven like a certain track record that it's made it to 5. That's, pretty incredible. So, yeah, I've been having a good time with it. I recommend it. Giving the series a shot. I am not the biggest fan of the main goddess in the beginning, but don't worry,
Hestia.
just like a certain magical index like Hestia slowly get written out more and more as the series goes on. I mean, they still are there, but they're nowhere near as relevant. So like that's okay.
I think I've finished season 2, and I was just kind of like, yeah, I didn't feel the need to really continue on that much. But so are you saying that so are you saying that like in season 3 and 4 and I guess 5, she's not as prominent a figure?
So I'll have to we can go ahead and talk about where you left off, because I can't actually remember where you left off in the story wise,
Okay.
because it's just been that long since I've seen season 1 and 2.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been
Uh,
forever.
I know, like I'm gonna I'm gonna say season 3 has to do with rescuing a person, like some like a slave, essentially, is more or less what it was. Season
Yeah.
4 was divvied up into 2 parts, and that happened to do with there's a elf character who works at a restaurant,
Hmm.
and so it's like her backstory, who she helps out in season 2 or something, I thought.
Yeah, she's
She helps
been
out in the earlier
introduced.
stuff.
Yeah.
So she's like super OP and you don't know why, and you get the first half is her backstory, the second half is um, kind of Belle and hers, like, trial they're overcoming kind of deal. They're in trouble and they work their way out, but everyone else is also doing a lot of good stuff, and there's a lot of like I said, if you want action, that's most definitely the most action heavy they've gotten, but also it's a decent enough story. I think being able to watch it all back to back is a little bit better, so you can kind of move through it if you wanted to actually progress with the storyline itself. And yeah, this one they took something like, not really, I'm not spoiling it, but they took someone who thought you knew who they were, and they completely changed everything about them, essentially, like in a thematic way, I guess. Not just like, this person was one acted one way, now they're just acting crazy. No, it's they their whole persona is like, they've
Mm.
been incognito or something, like the entire time.
We showed
And
you
so it's like, oh, all
this,
right,
but
that
now we're gonna like
this
gonna
is who they really are, kind of
yeah.
deal,
That's what I
yeah.
said.
So,
Okay.
and then like, oh, that's a cool twist that I was not expecting. And
Yeah.
now they've done a MacGuffin, a thing where it's just like, oh wow, So I see where you're going with this, and I'm all right with that. So it's uh, the main Bell Cornell, the main character.
Mm.
He's been a character. I mean, he's just a genuine nice guy who tries his hardest. He's the substitute for the Japanese anime protag. Like he could, like good guys will always win if they try hard, and that was he's too goody goody for like and that's fine. But
Yeah.
like I said, I find the world it's in is interesting and good.
Yeah, the world's pretty good, and it has a lot of side characters, and a lot of the side characters are really really good. I from through season two, I honestly think that the main two characters are probably are the weakest part of the show. Not that Bell Cornell is like bad. It's just like I just don't really get anything really out of him. But all of the side characters are pretty great. I mean, they're like well designed, and they say cool stuff, and they do cool stuff, and stuff like that. So I at least stand with you on that part. Yeah. Um, so no, that's good. That's
Well,
good.
for me, it was the fact that, like, I think after season 2 or something, I started reading the manga,
Oh, okay.
and, because it was such big gaps between, you're like, "Okay, they're done." I mean, they'll never come back with another anime of this, and they're like, "Oh, wait, they did. Awesome." So then I'd catch up on the manga, or I would read I would watch the anime, but then I'd still continue with the manga because the manga was still further ahead. And I did that for a bit, and then it's just at one point, it's just like I ended up just stopping the manga, just continuing with the anime. And I was just like, all right, because I think season 4, a lot of the backstory for the one character is actually in a spin-off. It was a spin-off manga itself, like a side book. So that was I'm like, okay, so they're throwing that in with the main storyline. Got it. So that's I find it this new one totally worth it. But it's a hard ask for people like, yeah, so there's 5 seasons of this thing, totally just jump in right in the beginning, because like that's like you got a whole bunch of stuff to work with, but it's
Yeah.
all English dubbed, and the English dubbing is pretty okay. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's very least it's not a hard show to watch. So it is something that you can pick up season one, and uh, it's not gonna you're not gonna scratch your head. You're not gonna really be like, oh, this is completely boilerplate or anything like that. It is a pretty good show. It is pretty good overall. But yeah, I mean, it started out as a light novel, right?
probably. I
Okay,
mean, I never read any of the light novels, but like with
but they did
like
make a
that is
manga. That's kind of what I was asking about.
yeah.
'Cause I'm pretty sure it started out as a light novel, but I like it when they go ahead and make a manga out of it because I don't really want to read a light novel, even if it's translated. I don't really want to do that. I would want to read a manga. Um, but so if they've done that, then that's actually kind of nice. I think I like that idea.
A lot of the light novels do that get turned into anime. There's a lot of them that do get manga adaptations as well. That
Hmm.
generally seems to be the way it goes. I mean, sometimes it goes the opposite where it goes manga, light novel, then anime, but most of the time it's light novel, manga, anime. It's like the natural course of things. Um, like very rarely will they just skip the manga portion,
Hmm.
uh, unless if it's like a one-off, like we're doing a movie opposed to doing a series. Uh, but yeah, all right.
Okay.
And that's it for the real talk of anime because a lot of anime is coming to an end this season. They're starting to show trailers for a bunch of new stuff, which is really cool. Uh, One of the trailers that really stuck out to me was, I believe it's called From Bureaucrat to Villainous.
Okay.
Dad's been reincarnated, and I find that to be hilarious. It's just there's a trailer out there for it, and it's simply uh, a guy in an otome game or whatever, and he's the villainous. So blonde hair, lots of drill like spirals, and is in the internal like monologue, you see his bald head, old man Oji-san, like bowing with her and stuff, and like, he's controlling her. And then apparently the twist is the family finds out. So, like the daughter points to the screen and yells at the mom and so like, "Hey, dad's name is like next to the villainous's character's name." Um, and apparently because he gets hit by Truck Coon. It starts out with him getting hit by Truck Coon. It turns out he's still in coma or something. So, yeah, it looks pretty weird. They throw out a few more things in the trailer, which I won't say. Uh, but it looks ridiculous enough, and I'm like, that you have my attention, and I really hope it pays off because it like you're taking I like it when people play with tropes. It's just like
Yeah.
it's not the same old thing. It's close, but we're doing something ridiculous. I'm like, okay, cool. So, all right. The last thing is I finally got around to watching that Deadpool and Wolverine movie that everyone seemed to really like. I just completely hadn't gotten around to it. I didn't go see it in theaters, obviously, but it finally got around to watching it on Disney. So yeah, the I think the praise was warranted. I felt it was a little long in parts, but overall, it really seemed to keep up a decent pace of entertainment and kind of all over the place. Uh, but yeah, it was. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't know. Did you actually get around to watching this one?
No, I completely forgot and did not watch this. I did see the first Deadpool and the second Deadpool, and this was on my list of things that I wanted to watch because the Deadpool movies have been really funny and enjoyable overall. So I do want to watch this, and I probably will get around to watching. I'm about to go on vacation for Christmas and stuff, so I'll have some time, and I'll try to get around to watching it over vacation. But yeah, so I mean, I've always liked the Deadpool. I like the Deadpool movies because they are just completely like audacious and hilarious. And it seems like what's his name, Ryan? I forget
Ryan
that.
Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds. It's almost like he was born to play that character. I mean, it's kind of uncanny how he's just kind of perfect for it in so many ways. Um, so yeah, definitely was something that I wanted to see and still plan to, but I haven't got a chance to yet. So have you? So it's like you watched the other two, right? And then how does that compare to how does this compare to this one?
I would say it's probably it's right there. It's right behind number one. I think I still
Mm,
like number one the best. I mean, there are certain things about this one that is better than the first, but I think number one just for the fact that it came out of nowhere, no one was expecting it. You can never put that genie back in the bottle because it's
yeah.
that shock value, just jaw dropping. It was hilarious. They do a lot of things that are equally good though, but I think that it's just so overall. I think I just from a nostalgia. Now you also got to realize I haven't seen the first one since like shortly after it first came out. I think I might have watched it like once or twice, probably twice, showing a friend or something like that.
Yeah.
So now it's at this point colored with nostalgia. Like I'm probably remembering it better than it might have been, or I don't remember the other scenes that I might have like rolled my eyes at or something like that. Um, and I like number 2. No, don't I actually did like the second one.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things that it's also been a while since I saw the second. It wasn't as good as the first, but there was, a lot of funny key moments, and you're just kind of with this one, you're trying to piece together, like, okay, wait a minute, who's that from the prior, and what's going on? Because I think I like you kind of remember, like, oh yeah, that he had the X Force. You got to remember like that
Mm,
team that he was with on the second one, and uh,
yeah.
so it's just Brad Pitt's amazing cameo in that. So
Yeah, Josh
uh,
Brolin and stuff and this Cable, which is just it's been pretty good. Yeah, it's the second one was just sort of like, okay, it's not bad. You guys made it, but it's not. There's not a lot. I mean, I remember plenty about it, but nothing super specific. And yeah, that first one, yeah, I mean, it just the lightning in a bottle and the like. hadn't been done, that nothing had really been done like that, prior, and that it was, like it wasn't like Marvel's first rated R movie, so it was all that stuff, and then it was just freaking hilarious. Just the jokes were just so crude and off the wall, and just take no prisoners. You can only do that once. So in a lot of ways, if you were to, if you turned 14 or whatever, and you went and watched all three of these movies at once, you might think that, two is actually a lot better than most people do. And you might think that three is the best of all, just because you're just like almost watching them like one big long movie. So I kind of wonder about that, but otherwise, it's it. So I imagine the comedy is like, because that's the main thing. How is the comedy? Is the comedy still on brand?
Yes. So that is still on point. They do all the proper fourth wall breaking jokes, and in fact, it's one of those things that they poke fun of Disney a lot. Saying like talking about cocaine. Can't do cocaine because their overlords don't want it and stuff like that. That's the one thing they're not allowed to do. Um, they have a good poke at the fact that Disney owns them now. It's not Fox. And even the tie-ins to other Marvel properties. You know, uh, Not really a spoiler. They just mentioned. I'm just gonna skirt around this, but like at one point they're like, um, there's this villain or this bad entity, and he's like, oh, from TV show episode blank, and he's just like he just deadpans it to the screen, like okay. I'm like, well, I'm kind of glad well, I'll just say he mentions it from Loki, the show. I'm like, okay, well,
Mm,
cool. I saw that. And the only other thing you need to really, if you've seen Deadpool, 1 and 2, uh, maybe Logan. You can watch Logan, and you can but you don't
mm,
really need to watch it. Uh, but yeah, that's like that. They really don't need anything else. Everything is self-contained for the most part. If you watched older, like the really old stuff from was it the late 90s, early 2000, or like I'm sorry, early 2000 stuff, you might get a little more jokes behind there, but it's all kind of explained to you. So
okay.
yeah, it's one of those. It's long. But it doesn't overstay its welcome. Uh, he really did a good job with this, and I can see why people really liked it. I mean, I think I'm glad I saw it from home. Um, Actually, I'm trying to think. It's like it feels long, but maybe it's not as long as I think. I think it's just over 2 hours. It's like 2 so it's not as compared to nowadays.
Anything over 90 minutes for any kind of comedy that's a lot. I mean, that's a ton. But I mean, since it is an action comedy, they probably try to have to fit a bit more capital S story in there. So it kind of makes sense. But even then, right at 2 hours is probably where most studios would want that to be. So the fact that they went over 2 hours, to me, it says that at least they thought they had uh, plenty of story to tell and plenty of comedy to fit in.
Yeah, it's I mean, oh, Hugh Jackman nails it. It's funny to see they have just some of the scenes they pull through. There's a certain CG scene where it's just like I physically like winced a little bit. I'm like, oof, like that is really well done with that CG. But it's just like, and then was it Corridor Crew did a kind of a take on that. Like they looked over it, so I went ahead and watched that one.
Hmm.
But yeah, I recommend giving it a shot over your holiday break. Just play it on with the rest of the family, right? Like any little children around, they just introduce them to the wonders that is Wolverine, and then you give them a couple pencils to run around the house with their fake claws, and I mean,
Yeah,
if they survive with all their eyes intact by the end of the holiday season, they're good to go.
I guess that's something that every single male in America born after 1980 has done is taken three number two pencils and put them in between their fingers and been Wolverine. I mean, right? Like, It's just funny that you mentioned that. I was like, yeah, I guess I have done
Yeah, and we turned out more or less okay. Yeah.
No, no, we didn't. But
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
all.
we had to do with the early '90s, X-Men, and that show everyone likes the new 94, but man, that early show was just not that great. I'll say it. I mean, it's great out of the campiness, but that soap opera drama of the original cartoon was just terrible.
It is very it is yeah, it's pretty overblown. I mean that song was pretty amazing. That's the thing is the theme was just is lit. It's just awesome. Even now, just like I just playing it back in my mind, like dang, it just like gets you hyped for the show, and then the show is kind of what it is. Animation wasn't bad, but yeah, probably people look at it with rose-colored glasses for a lot of that.
Yeah, I unfortunately I have not watched the new animated. I've heard good things, and yeah. All right. Well, that's it. I didn't want to go into deep dive, especially knowing that you haven't seen the seen this one.
Hmm.
There are a few things I'm legit like because it does some time jumping stuff. I'm like, all right, I have a question or two for you to bring up, and I'm just curious what your takes are on certain things because
Okay. Okay. Well,
it's weird now.
the thing, I haven't seen it, but what you're talking about, where he references the other TV show and the other episode, I don't know if Deadpool started that. But I know that, and I don't know when it actually did start, but when I was reading comic books, in the '90s, and the comic books that I looked back through, at least through the '80s, they oftentimes would have like whenever a character would mention something that happened outside of that issue, they'd have like a little box, and it would say from or like see, Uncanny X-Men number 35 or see Fantastic Four number blah blah blah. And it's pretty smart because it's like telling you, okay, that's where that is, that's where that happened. But also it's kind of a little like it's a little advertisement for like, hey, if that does that sound interesting to you, that like whatever thing he's talking about, well, you could go buy the comic now. You can go read it. So I kind of respected that, at least the game on that one. So that sounds like what he is doing whenever he references that is he's kind of talking to everybody that read comic books and saw those little boxes referring to other stuff that happened that you don't need to know, but there it is for you if you want to know. So yeah.
Yeah, well, once again, it's one of the things that they the whole stick of getting him into the game and or into this movie and uh what propels him forward and the titles they give him or whatever. It's uh yeah, I just want like I don't want to say anything because that just I feel like it's leading slightly spoiling or at least ruining the
Mm,
punchlines before you get there.
okay.
And
Okay.
it's those are best to experience
Rush.
the first time through on your own.
Yeah.
So
Dang it.
all right.
Yeah, I totally forgot. If you had, it's your fault. You didn't remind me. You should have said, hey, did you watch Deadpool Wolverine yet? And I would have been like, dang it. And I would have done it. But I'm going to try hard to do it
You
this
knew
week.
last week, son. We cut it from the docket last week.
I
You had a
know, but
whole
you
week.
didn't remind me in the middle of the week. You didn't. Yeah, it's not my fault. It's your fault. So it's easy to see.
Yeah, yeah, that's the American way. It's not my fault, it's your fault. All
Yes.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh,
All right. Well, guys, if you made it to the end, we appreciate it. It's been a weird one. It's been a weird holiday season. So we will be recording a little later next week. We'll probably be recording a couple Sundays from now,
mhm.
but it'll be the last one. We got one more out before the end of the year. But this will be the last one before the holiday season. So, and for all you out there, enjoy whatever holiday festivities you got. Nick, what are the words of wisdom you got for the people out there?
Um, Whenever you make a mistake, blame everyone else.
Yep. especially during the cooking during the holiday season. Just make sure to pin it on, pin it on the least liked family member, or if you have
Mm.
to, pull the pet, whatever pet it is, and just blame them. Be like, it's the food fell to the ground. It was Snuffles or whatever, or like the kids, the children. The children played with the stove. It's not my fault the food wasn't good. It was the kids' fault. You know, yeah.
Children, they were playing tag and they bumped the burner and it turned it up, and that's why it's burned because Timmy was chasing Spot, and that's what happened.
All right. Well, hopefully you all have some good eating this holiday season. And until next time, this is ADP. You all take it easy.
Stay safe out there. Bye.